So glad to have you back again, man. Good to have you on the show.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. I'm too excited. I just wanted to share one thing before we got started today. Just because I think about this a lot, and I've written some things down just on my personal notes, and everything we talk about, I want to make it clear that we're not perfect on these topics. Today we're just gonna talk about complaining and just a little bit of the philosophy of that, and I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we still complain and we're not perfect, and everything that we talk about, we tell ourselves these things to help us be better and where we want to be. So I think that's important, that hey, we're not coming out here and saying, oh, don't complain, and we don't do it. But yeah, I just wanted to share that really quick before we got started.
Yeah, I want to start with a story, and a lot of times when I have thoughts like these, I may have a story in my head that started the thought process. And the story that I have is, I used to work with somebody that it was hot this day. I'm not gonna lie, it was hot, but you just go through it. Sometimes days are hot. The person that I'm talking about was constantly complaining about, oh, I'm gonna pass out, oh, I feel so lightheaded, I'm thirsty, I'm dehydrated, all this kind of stuff. And we said, okay, just go take a break, sit down, get some water, it's no big deal. Oh, no, I'm fine. But then just kept complaining about how hot he was. And I remember just sitting there thinking, if you're complaining about a problem and you don't do anything about it, then shut up. Like, I don't want to hear you consistently complain about something and take no action to correct an issue. It's annoying. And I feel like after that point, it really made me think, okay, well, number one, do I do this? And if I do, I need to stop. But number two, if you are raising an issue about something, like you need to take action about that issue. Don't just talk about it and don't do anything. The point I'm bringing up is, don't complain, brainstorm, right?
Yeah. You need to I feel like most people complain and they have a solution in mind, and they know what a solution would be, but they don't want to resolve it. And because complaining is the easy way out. I mean, that's just, I think people complain because they'd rather say a few words than take action to correct it. So I think it's really as simple as that, honestly.
And there's complaining, there's venting, and like you were saying, they just say a couple of words just to get it off their chest. And yeah, sometimes you vent about stuff, and it may make you feel better in this current circumstance, but what is that going to do for you long term? Nothing.
Yeah.
Venting does nothing for you, and it's such a short-term satisfaction, but in reality, once you get on that path of venting and somebody may be listening to you, you think, okay, well, this person's listening. Well, they're just giving you sympathy, right? There's no real benefit to complaining or venting or anything alike. And it's a waste of time.
Yeah. One thing that I wrote down is, just banking off that, is you must look at your actions from a third party view. And that's kind of relating to your story, but if you're finding yourself complaining a lot, and this is something that I've done, I look at myself and I'm like, hey, I'm complaining too much. Hey, I gotta change my mindset, because to what you said, as a spectator or somebody else in the conversation, they don't want to hear it. So why would you want to hear it out of yourself? So I always try to keep that in mind, just so I don't get too far into complaining. I like to just try to stop myself before I go too far, because like I said, everybody's gonna complain. It's the easy thing to do is just trying to catch yourself before it starts negatively affecting other people and relationships, because it will. And then also just for your own well-being, honestly.
And one thing that we were talking about before we started this podcast was how when you complain, like-minded people like to be around like-minded people. And so I personally have noticed a lot when I complain in the past, or I notice other people complaining, that attracts other complainers. And so do you really want to surround yourself with negative people that are constantly complaining about something? I know I wouldn't. I'm sure you wouldn't. It's a simple question, but you got to think, well, if I complain a lot, I'm more than likely going to attract other people that complain very often about something or another. So I'm just going to be surrounding myself with misery. And it can be the same the other way too. I mean, the 1% talk about your network is your net worth. And so for those people, they surround themselves with successful business people to help grow each other. And we were talking before about how I want to see the best for him and vice versa. Like, I want him to be wildly successful. And so I would rather surround myself with people who do not complain and instead talk about positivity. And like I said, it seems like a very obvious point, but when you get on a habit of complaining constantly, you are going to attract those people into your life. Not good.
Yeah, and it's going to be your only topic you ever talk about. I know too many personal cases where people just sit around and, talk smack. It's just like, don't you want to have a talk about hobbies or, going on vacations or cool places or music or, television show, whatever you like.
Something fun.
Yeah, something fun, like positive, instead of just filling yourself in a room with people who have a problem about everything else.
Mm-hmm. It's, like I said in the beginning, I mean, it's okay to express concern about an issue, but then after that, you got to back up with action. Don't just sit around and talk about it. Right?
Yeah, there's got to be there's a solution. You just don't, like I said earlier, there's a solution. It's just hard and not worth your time, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And another thing I think about often too is your life is 100% what you make of it, like your own choices. And so I've known people in the past that will complain about their own life and think, why are you complaining about yourself? Essentially, I remember hearing about a man, and I don't know who wrote this, but it was a man who was put into a Russian gulag, which is basically a work camp in the Soviet Union. And at that point, he was sitting in his jail cell or his room or whatever housing arrangement he was in, and thinking, I don't deserve this. The Soviets came into my home, took me, probably put a bag over his head, put me in a train car, and now I'm here. And this is, more than likely all because of his religion. Like, he just was thinking, why am I here? This is so unfair. But then he started thinking, well, it is unfair, but I do live in the Soviet Union. I know that this is a potential. I've heard cases about this before, so I shouldn't be shocked, like 100% shocked, that I'm sitting here in a gulag. Yes, it's unfair, but he was taking accountability for himself even in the most dire situations. For somebody who is just taken out of their home and put into a Russian gulag, it's terrible, but he was mature enough to think, okay, instead of just sitting here sulking about my current situation, how can I try to figure out why I'm here and eventually get out, which I think he did. But it was a really profound story because I'm thinking, not many people would be able to sit in a gulag and think that to themselves. They think, even though I was taken out of my home, I am accountable for myself being here right now, because maybe I could have moved to another country. Maybe I could have escaped somewhere. I know Soviet Union is kind of hard to travel freely because they have travel ban, or had, sorry, had travel bans. Soviet Union is no longer in existence, but he could have done something to get out of that situation prior. And so that, another story of, not complaining. And that one is, like I said, really profound, because he's taking 100% accountability for his current situation. And the point I brought up of, your life is your own choice. That is 100% true. If you're not making enough money, you think, what choice of a job did I pick? Am I happy or unhappy with that choice? And do I have enough motivation to change? Right? It's you have to, like you were saying, a third-party view of yourself. How can I improve on my situation of my own choices if I do not like my current state? Don't just sit there and complain, oh, I don't have enough money. Well, go and get some more.
We are now in the greatest era. For the first time ever, with no fucking money, with no goddamn connections, this can put you on the map. If you're good enough, if you are good enough to be up here, to make bling bling, if you are good enough, nobody's stopping you. Not fucking Donald Trump, not the fucking Russians, nobody. If you are a minority, if you are a female, if you are a transgender, if you're a fucking alien, the market doesn't give a fuck. If you make the best shit, you will win.
Right? We live in America. This is a free country. You can take advantage of the capitalist system. Whether or not you agree with capitalism doesn't really matter. The fact is that you live here and you can do that. Like I said, in the Soviet Union, you didn't have an option. So don't complain about something that is your own choice.
Sometimes it's very hard.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to figure out the best method to make the best out of the worst situations. Because it's, not an easy thing to do. But I feel like we could talk about manifestation after this one.
Yeah. Yeah, another topic. Another video.
I have a lot of thoughts on that, so I feel like that would... I feel like it ties in right to what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. And, talking about the Soviet Union and going back into history, I've been doing research, listening to YouTube videos about like the Ottoman Empire, Vlad the Impaler, and I really enjoy learning about this kind of stuff because I can learn about how people behave over the span of human time. And so one thing that I enjoy doing while I'm listening to these YouTube videos is picking out common traits amongst not only empires but people. And one thing that I was learning about the Ottoman Empire is there were many, many sultans that ruled over that empire, over the span of the empire. And those men were men of action. They said, I am emperor, I'm sultan, I'm going to conquer as much land as I possibly can conquer and make this empire a great place to live. I guarantee you that those men were not sitting at home complaining about anything. Like, the people of that empire expected great things of those people, of those emperors, those sultans. Complaining is going to do nothing. Complaining is not going to fix any tax problems that they have. Complaining is not going to ward away any potential invaders that are going to come and kill their people and take their possessions. That's not going to do anything. So those people, even way back then, and I'm sure even in the Byzantine Empire, Roman Empire, and before then, they knew that complaining was a complete waste of time. They were in positions of power, and complaining is a weak tactic. So I just have to think these are role models of history. These men are still known today because of their actions. They're not known because of their complaints, right? So I just think I like to use these people, and I think everybody else should too, as role models. Think, okay, maybe you can come up with a list of 5 different traits, 10 different traits of these leaders. And you think, how can I emulate these people to the best of my ability? And I guarantee you that complaining is not on that list. I guarantee you. Because if they complained all the time, they wouldn't have gotten anything done. And we wouldn't know who they are today.
When you bet on optimism, when you're on the offense, when you were playing towards intangibles, you do something super duper interesting. You start suffocating excuses.
Right? It's just that makes no sense to me. I just think, there are a lot of people that they complain, they get sympathy, and then they feel good enough about themselves to go back to being the same person. And that's asinine to me. Why would you complain and raise a problem, but then go back to doing the same thing? Definition of insanity, of doing the same thing and getting the same result, or thinking they're going to get a different result. Makes no sense.
I had something on my mind and I lost it.
Sorry. Kind of talked a little bit too long there.
All right, so I just want to bounce off that, and I just try to reflect to the first podcast, but just being grateful. I like I said, I think I said this in the first one, but I think sometimes you just got to be grateful, and I think you complain because you just don't take the time to reflect on, the actual outcome of the scenario, or whatever it may be, or still what you have, but yeah, I think that can just relate to so many topics, but just being grateful as well, and really taking the time, even every day, to just reflect what you have and just say, hey, maybe I don't have the best house right now, and instead of saying like, oh, I wish my house was like this or newer, you could say, hey, at least I have a roof over my head. But any of your thoughts, you just got to think that way.
Mm-hmm. And going off of that point too, I think that in the first video we mentioned people in the tribes of Africa. I highly doubt that they're complaining about much of anything.
Right, yeah.
Right, and you've heard the term first world problems, or first world problems.
Yeah.
And it's so true, because I hear people complain constantly about stuff that makes no sense why you're complaining about your Wi-Fi being slow.
I wish we had better perspective. I wish that there was some fucking crazy, that dude right there with the weird fucking horse t-shirt, I wish he was some weird genie that could take us back into time 80 years ago, so that every one of you could live one fucking day in your great-great-grandparents' shoes and understand how fucking good you have it.
Why are you complaining?
It's silly when you reflect on it yourself.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you look at yourself, your thoughts from a third party, you're just like, come on.
Yeah. I think when I have an issue with something, when I'm like, man, the Wi-Fi is slow, I just think how pathetic I am compared to somebody who doesn't have to, if they were to complain, it would be about not being able to find enough food for the day.
Real problems.
If they were to complain, that's what it would be about. Not about, why is it taking 5 seconds for my YouTube video to load? It's stupid.
It's because you're stupid. Stupid.
Why am I complaining about something that makes absolutely no sense? It just, like we were talking about, looking at yourself from an outside perspective. The things that we complain about here in America are stupid reasons to complain. And I just think, after your emotions are going down about not your YouTube video not loading faster than it did yesterday, I just think that was dumb. I better check myself.
Yeah.
Because I don't want anyone to hear what I just said, because it's embarrassing.
That's, I think, the biggest thing to take away from this podcast is just reflect on yourself for a second.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, you will complain. I'm going to complain after this, so will David. That's just human nature. But, or before you can even, say anything, just be like, hey, before you say something, Is that actually what you want to say?
Just think.
Yeah.
Okay.
It take 5 seconds.
Yeah, and I think if you are to complain about something or anyone, it should be about yourself. Don't complain about other people, because you're not going to change other people. Unless you are an extremely inspirational person, you have a literary power that no one else has, you are not going to change somebody. If you say somebody, well, you should stop complaining about, nobody's going to listen to you. Nobody cares. If you tell somebody to stop complaining about something, do something about this, fix that, fix this, more than likely they're not going to change at all. And in fact, that's probably going to make them dig in their heels even more and even double down on their viewpoint. So I think the only person you can be critical of, truly, is yourself. And even then, you shouldn't just complain about yourself. Take action about yourself. Brainstorm. How can I improve my situation? You said, I don't like my house. What can I do about that? Yeah, maybe you can't go out and buy a big mansion, but maybe you can fix something. Do something. Don't just. But if you're going to critique anyone, it should be yourself. Unless you're a movie critique or whatever, that's your job. But just the point of this episode, you should critique yourself, if anyone. But brainstorm. Don't just complain.
Find a solution.
Yeah, find a solution. And we were talking about this before. If somebody comes up to me and says, with a problem, and they just complain about it, like our friend Grant is going to say, well, do you have a solution? Why are you just bending my ear? Don't come to me just with this negativity and just walk away. I want, present a problem, present a solution. Don't just complain about it. I don't know of anybody that would welcome with open arms somebody coming up in a bad mood and just unloading all their crap onto them and just walking away. It's like if somebody came up to my house and just dumped a bunch of junk on my lawn, I wouldn't like that. So why would you come and dump a bunch of junk onto somebody, meaning complaining? Offer a solution to something, to a problem. Don't just complain about it. And that's such a good point, because it makes you think, well, yeah, I wouldn't want somebody just to come up and just barf a bunch of nonsense all over me and then ruin my day and walk away.
Yes, you have to ask yourself the same thing. If you are complaining, then you have to figure out, okay, well, what's my solution or answer? If you expect that out of other people, to come to you with a problem and their solution, then same thing for yourself. You should say, hey, why don't you do this? Mm-hmm. Or you gotta hold yourself accountable as well.
Absolutely. So we've been talking about more philosophical reasons why not to complain and why it's not good for you. But I was doing some research, and there is some more neuroscience reasons why you shouldn't complain. And I'll post a video in this video to further explain myself. But when you complain, you reinforce that habit, and you reinforce those neural passageways, if I'm using the correct terminology, in your brain to complain more often. The best way I can describe it from my limited knowledge about neurochemistry is it's like a tributary or a river. If there's water constantly flowing down this one passageway, it's going to mold that riverbed to flow more freely and more easily from water to get from one place to another. And I think your brain is the same way, where if you're constantly complaining, you're constantly reinforcing and building that passageway throughout your thought process in your head, so that when you bring up any topic, it's very easy for you to complain about something because you're used to that complaining. You've built the skill, if you can call it that, of complaining. So, and there's scientific data to back this claim up. I'm not just going up here talking about my opinions. There's research to back it up. So I think, and it's crazy that you can physically change the chemistry of your brain just by the words that you say. And so reversely, you can, instead of just building negative passageways, you can build positive ones. And why wouldn't you do that? You know, so if I can, in every conversation, at least try to think of something positive to add, right? Like the people that always complain or always negative, they're like a parasite to the conversation. They only offload a negative emotion onto the people that they're talking to. They don't add anything good or positive, right? So I just think if you can physically change your brain to be negative, obviously that's not a good thing, but why wouldn't you just choose to physically change it to be positive? And I think it's just really interesting that science has proven that this actually occurs in your brain, that you can physically change your brain by how negative you are.
I think if you complain so much, you probably complain and you don't even know it. Mm-hmm. Like you feel like like I said, you're just complaining and it's just coming out your mouth because that's routine for your brain. It's just to act that way. So yeah, that's why I said, just catching yourself so that way you don't build a habit or a path for that to happen.
The best way to deal with constant negativity is to develop a sense of gratitude. Just like complaining acts as a poison, gratitude acts as a medicine. Research shows that having gratitude lowers cortisol levels by 23%, as well as reduces blood pressure and cholesterol. It also decreases fatigue and depression. Gratitude is the perfect antidote for complaining, a behavior that steals our brain power, happiness, and physical well-being.
Yeah, I think that was a good episode. I just want to recap the things that we went over. So I just think, don't complain. You should brainstorm. Because nobody cares when you complain. It's annoying. I've never heard anyone that enjoys listening to somebody complain. Maybe I'll meet somebody, but I haven't yet. No leader in history has ever just sat there and complained about something and not taken action. Because again, if they did that, we wouldn't know their name. They would be lost in history with the rest of them. So the good leaders took action. Don't complain because other quitters will surround themselves around you. And I don't want quitters. I want winners. And just don't complain because it negatively impacts the chemistry of your brain. And I don't want that. So there's a siren in the back signaling the end of our podcast. And I think now is a good time to sign off. So thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again next time.